Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's podcast. The topic for today has to do with how to raise money for your startup. So, I'm going to do a couple of series on this subject. So, today we're going to focus on, how to raise money from friends and family to start your business. And before I even get into the main topic, I want to clear up some misconceptions about how companies are funded. When you read the business publications or Entrepreneur Inc. magazine, Fast Company, what have you, there is this perception that all you do is come up with a great idea, go to a venture capital firm, pitch your idea, and everybody's knocking at the door trying to throw money at you to fund your startups. The reality is that only 1% of all startups are funded by venture capitalists. So people who go out there and raise institutional money, there's only 1% of startups that get that kind of money. So for the other 99% of startups, where do they get the money from? Well, there are a variety of sources that the money comes from. There's friends and family. There's personal resources, which is personal savings, credit cards, 401k, other retirement accounts. So that's number two. Then there is, these days people are getting some money from, crowdfunding sources. And then you have angel investors who come in typically when you've actually gotten some traction. But a majority of startups, a large majority of startups are funded by personal resources and borrowing from friends and family. So, the first misconception is that not everybody is getting that institutional money that you see in the news. Very, very few. It's actually 1%. And then the second misconception is that people think that banks are an option when you want to start a business. And the truth is that banks are not in the business of funding startups. People have this unrealistic expectation that you can just prepare a business plan, put on your suit, and then go to a bank and walk in and give them your business plan, and they will read it and say, "Oh, great idea! Here's a loan for $20,000. Here's a loan for $100,000." Banks don't do that. Banks are not in the business. They don't take that kind of risk because that is too risky. They will give you money once you've shown some traction and they feel like your risk has, they can mitigate their risk. But initially, they're not interested in putting money in. And you can't blame them if you understand the odds against startups where, a huge majority of businesses that are started fail within the first 3 years. Banks don't want to be putting their money into that kind of risk. So the first source I want to address today is what we call the friends and family source. And there is this joke, in a lot of business books that, the 3 F's are, a major source of funding, which is friends, family, and fools. So they say fools put their money into startups because of the odds. They're saying you're a fool if you're going to go invest your money into a startup because the odds against you are so high. So that's why there's the 3 F's, friends, family, and fools. And you see that as a joke, but there's some truth to it because if you have to have a certain level of blindness, to put your money into a startup because you're betting against a lot of odds that this is going to work. But we are entrepreneurs. So our goal is to go against those odds. Our goal is to turn the negative into positive. Our goal is to convince our friends and family that our business idea is worth investing to. So that is what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to give you six different tips on how you can go about successfully raising money from your friends and family. So here I go. So the first one is preparation. You cannot treat your friends and family, as friends and family when you're raising money from them. You have to really take it seriously and prepare. You should treat it like any other. If you're going to an angel investor and the amount of preparation you're going to put in, you're going to prepare a deck, you're going to make sure that you know what you're talking about, you've done your research, your market research, everything. You should put that level of preparation into going to present to a friend or a family when you're trying to get money from them for your business. So you need to prepare. Preparation is very important. And what do you need to prepare? You need to make sure that you clearly state your idea. You talk about your market size and why this is a good market opportunity. You should talk about why your business is different. Why are you different from the competition? That should be in your presentation. You should talk about how you're going to make money. How is this business going to make money? That should be in your presentation. And you should also talk about why they should invest in this business. What is so special about it, and how are they then going to make their money back? So you should address all these issues in your presentation, because you want them to feel that you're treating them and you're respecting their money that they're gonna put in. So take it seriously and make sure that you're prepared to answer their questions about any aspect of your business. And you should not take it for granted that they are your friend or your family, so they should just give you the money, because it's their money and they're about to put it into something very risky. So you have to respect that and give them everything they need from a research perspective, so that they can feel confident that you know what you're getting yourself into, and can deliver on your promise to not only turn the business into success, but also return their money. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is very simple. You have to ask. And this was one of the things that took me a long time to get my head around. But when you start a business and you naturally tell your friends, you tell your family, and you're telling them your problems and you're telling them everything. But one of the things we forget to do is to actually ask them for funding. So it is different when you go talk to your friend and say, oh, I'm starting this business, I'm really excited, I'll have to raise money, I don't have money, I don't know where the money is going to come from. Or you're talking to your family. But until you actually formally ask them, you are not going to get the response that you're expecting. And to assume that people will actually know that you need money is very naive. You need to actually go. People like to be asked, so you should ask. And I have a very, very vivid example where one of my best friends, he was actually the best man in my wedding, and so we're that close. And when I started the business, for a long time, I was doing the friends and family round, and one day I was over the phone and we were talking, and I was telling him how my business is struggling, and I told him that, hey, I'm trying to raise money. I have very, very competitive interest rate. Would he like to invest, or would he like to loan me the money? And he said yes. And I was very surprised, because he's my friend and we kind of share financial problems with each other, and I had assumed that he may not have the money, or even if he had it, he may not invest it in my business. And that was a wrong assumption. And within a week, he made me a $30,000 loan, which was huge for me at that period of time, because I needed the money. And I offered him a very attractive interest rate, and within a week the money was sent to me. And I was very surprised. I was actually pleasantly surprised, because I had never asked him for that before. I only just shared my problems with him, and here he was ready to help, and the only thing I had to do was ask. So you should ask. You'll be surprised until you do. You will never know who is willing to help you and who is not. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is that you have to get a thick skin when you're asking friends and family for money. Some of them are going to say no. And when they say no, you should not take it personal, because you have to understand this is their money, and you're asking them to invest it in something very risky. And some of them would, some of them wouldn't. You don't know their personal situation, you don't know what they're dealing with, and most of them are probably even afraid for you. Why are you doing this? They're not sure whether you have what it takes to do it, so there's some doubt there. So it's for you to prove yourself. So when you ask a friend or a family for an investment or a loan for your business, and they say no, you should not take it personal. Yes, you're disappointed, but you should put it in that framework, because this is a very risky thing you're asking them to do. And some of them may not be comfortable. They may not have that appetite. There's a reason why they are not in business for themselves, and so you should be able to take that and move on to the next person. And that is a very, very, very important lesson. And then, the 4th tip is that you need to offer attractive terms. You should not just take their money and give them zero interest. I think you should offer a very, very attractive interest because it's a risk. And for the most part, it's an unsecured risk. So it's not like you're putting security behind that loan or that investment. So if you're asking for a loan, you should make sure that you offer an interest rate that is probably much, much better than for them to put their money in a savings account, because that you're compensating them for the risk that they're about to take, which is a much higher risk than putting their money in the savings account or even just holding it without investing it. So offer them a very attractive interest rate, and you'll be surprised people will latch on to that. And not only that, is that when you offer an attractive rate, structure your deal such that they will start getting regular interest payments at some point. So maybe the first year you may not be able to pay interest, but when you start getting revenue, build that into your financials so that you're paying regular interest rates. And there are a lot of reasons why that's a good idea. But the two most important is that this is a risky business. And if I have invested money in your business and you're paying me interest, at least I'm getting something back. So in the future, if the business goes under, I'm not coming up short or zero. At least I got some interest back. I got something back during the period that the business was surviving. So that's very important. Number two, it kind of reassures them that, you know what, I have invested my money into your business and I'm getting a return. So there's a good feeling about that, and it gives them a positive feeling about the investment they've made in you, because getting that interest check regularly helps them feel good and not nervous about the investment, because it tells them indirectly that the business is making enough money for you to be able to pay them interest. So that's very, very important. And then the next tip is that you should make sure that you keep them in the loop about everything. So if there is something that you're not going to be able to do, let's say you have an interest payment or a principal payment that you're not going to be able to make, don't let the terms expire and not say anything. If you see it coming, let them know ahead of time. Call them and explain to them, hey, I know I have to pay you interest next month. There's something going on with the business, so I will not be able to make that payment. I think I can make it at X date. Or, I won't be able to make the principal payment because of this. Can you give me 3 months, or can we extend it to 6 months? Get ahead of it. Don't let it expire and then have them call you demanding payment. That reflects badly on you, and you'll never get money from people like that anymore. And it's actually not a good way to run things, especially when you're borrowing from friends and family. Get ahead of everything before they call you. And if something is not going to be done at the date that you've promised, you should make sure that you're calling them and staying on top of it. That shows respect for them, for their money, and for their time. And finally, what I want to leave you with is that you should also provide them periodic updates. And if you've borrowed money or they've invested money in your company, don't just take money and then just go about your business. Give them periodic updates. You can do that every 6 months, or you can do that every year, where you write them a nice letter or a nice email just explaining what has happened. Hey, this is how the business has done this year. This is the great things that happened. These are some of the not so good things, and this is how we fixed it. Make sure that they're in the loop on how things are going. And of course, you want to share the positive news, but even if it's not positive, share it with them and tell them what you're doing to turn things around. They will respect you for that, because that again makes them feel that you care about the money that they've given you, you appreciate that they've invested their money in your business, and you respect them enough to let them know how things are going. So give them periodic updates. Don't let them ask you. Just put it on schedule and send that email or send that letter, but take your time and draft a nice letter or a nice email and say, hey, it's 6 months or it's another year. This is how the business did. This is the exciting things that happened. This is the not so exciting things and how we're working through it. Thank you for still believing in us, and thank you for still investing your money. It means a lot to me, and I'm grateful for that, for you for doing that. So those are the tips on how to raise money from your friends and family to fund your business. So thank you for watching this podcast. I hope you find value in what we talked about today, and subscribe to our channel for up and coming podcasts. Thank you.